way. Thank you for what you said earlier.
We're absolutely thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
I've loved even just you walking around the room, hearing everyone come up to you and just tell you, "Oh, I love you from this character in Pineapple Express," or people naming off every different movie and show.
I'm still working at age 75.
I can believe it. You're good.
I'm still fooling them. Don't tell them I have no idea what I'm doing, please. Thank you.
I think I was finishing up Better Call Saul while we were talking to you about attending this event. It was kind of this funny.
I love that.
We'd be on a Zoom call, and then I'd see you on TV the next night.
I'm very lucky to work on that and Young Sheldon, a show I just did recently. And I have a movie out called Strange Darling that's a wonderful, wonderful movie that you'll see at some point streaming. But as I said, very lucky at 75 to still be doing anything.
And you're doing it well.
Thank you, pal.
But yeah, you've been a champion for sustainability in Hollywood for decades at this point, before it was even necessarily a trendy thing to
1970 I started, 1970.
There you go. Can you recall, what was it that first inspired you to both live the sustainable life as an environmentalist, but also kind of share your experience throughout Hollywood?
It was activism 20 years in the making. At that point, I was 20 years old. I lived 2 decades in smoggy LA. You see where this is going. So after 20 years of that, somebody was talking about doing something to gather and celebrate the environment and the earth. It was called Earth Day. My friend Dennis Hayes was part of it. Big hand for that, please. And Dennis Hayes and all the people who were part of that, putting that together. But I asked the obvious question many people ask, if this is wonderful to get together for this one day, and we should, and it's important, what happens the other 364? At that point, I lived 20 years, as I said, in LA, 2 decades in that smoggy region. So I'm not an asthmatic, but I talk like this on a smoggy day, which was about 200 days of the year. You literally, I'm not doing that for effect. Well, I am doing it for effect because I don't breathe like that anymore. But that's the way everybody breathes. They say, don't go outside the classroom on smoggy days. But of course, that smoggy air would blow into the classroom. So when I said, what are we going to do the other 364? They said, we're going to clean up the air and we're going to clean up the water. Well, I knew the air was a problem because I've been breathing it for 20 years. And I knew the water was a problem because I'd seen the Santa Barbara oil spill that happened just before that first Earth Day. I knew that was real. It wasn't made up by anybody. There's plenty of scientific reports about it. But empirical evidence I saw with my own 2 eyes, what had happened there, all the fish that were damaged and lost and killed and injured, and other kinds of marine life, birds. And it was a horrible thing that happened. Not just there that I could see, but I read in the papers, and it turned out to be true, well documented. The Cuyahoga River caught fire in 1969. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's a bad sign when rivers catch fire. Conjures up the river Styx, it's not a good thing, rivers catching fire, but it did. There was so much toxic chemical on that river, some of it flammable. Somebody was smoking too close to it. Anyway, I'll see you Friday, and it caught fire. And I think that led to the first Earth Day. Santa Barbara oil spill, the smog in LA, and the Cuyahoga River got people. And another thing, a very positive thing happened in 1969. That was the trip to the moon. Went to the moon, and there was no life there, of course. They looked for any evidence of DNA, did not find it back then. But they saw in the distance, and they took beautiful Hasselblad pictures of it, the fine camera of the day, these beautiful color shots of the Earth in the distance. That became part of the Earth Day flag, became a symbol for us all to gather and to do something to protect the environment. And I'll just say this, it's a long-winded answer to a short question, but it's important. Now in LA, from 1970 to date, we have 4 times the cars, millions more people, yet we have a fraction of the smog. How do we do it? We all work together across both sides of the aisle, and all the stuff we hoped would work did work. Cleaner cars, cleaner power plants, cleaner public transportation, cleaner backyard barbecues, cleaner everything big and small that we did, reduced that smog, and that's where we are today. We should all be proud of doing that. We did it together.
So you definitely clap for that. So really, you just opened your eyes to what the environment was around you, and it was pretty awful, especially in LA during that times, and that's really what kind of led to this activity.
And what do you do about something like that? I decided to get active because my dad was great. He was a conservative Republican. I'm not, but I love that man. He was so great, and he had lived through the Great Depression. He was the son of Irish immigrants. We simply didn't throw away things. We saved tinfoil, we saved string, we turned off the lights, we turned off the water. So he came at green from the other side of the aisle, And he never used the word environmentalist really, but he was one. And I will also add that the way we clean up the air was not just with all the activism that I did and other stuff, corporate responsibility, but the Clean Air Act, good legislation helps too. That was signed by one Richard Nixon. And this very room that we sit in is part of the Javits Center. Jake Javits, a Republican, who helped with the Voting Rights Act, helped with the environment, helped with so many things that we all care about. So we must reach across the aisle. We must remember that more now than ever, I think.
Love that message. Hollywood can play a huge role in shaping public opinion. Huge. I think last year there was a specific discussion on this topic, and someone mentioned how a show like Will and Grace, for instance, got Americans comfortable with gay marriage that eventually led to passing of that. So there's a lot of things that Hollywood can do that influences public opinion. How have you used your platform as an actor to influence both the industry and broader public on how to live more sustainable or how to make sustainability more a part of our lives?
Well, you have a responsibility if you have the public platform, if you have the public microphone, the public megaphone. That's a tool that you've gotten because you're famous in law or medicine or acting or songwriting or many other things. You're known, so what do you do with that celebrity? You could go into a theater and cry fire in that crowded theater, but you don't want to do that. But if you've just been approached by the fire marshal, taps you on the shoulder and said, we do have a problem in the basement, it's smoldering right now, but if we get people to move row by row in an organized fashion, we can do something about it right now, so please tell the audience that. Imagine if I got that news and I just went out and did a song and dance. How could you do that? You can't do that. The fire marshal just came up and tapped you on the shoulder. That fire marshal is the Union of Concerned Scientists, people with PhD after their name, people who've been talking about climate change and plastics in the ocean and species extinction and all these things we're now facing, and they're huge problems. They've been talking about it since the 80s, since James Hansen testified before Congress about climate change. We don't listen to them. So again, you're famous. You don't want to do something irresponsible with that. You want to talk to people with PhD after the name, use peer-reviewed studies only. Don't just, I heard something's happening and we got to get together and do something about it. Where did you hear it, and are they a credible source? So that's what Hollywood has done, because they've done bad things with it over there. Bad things, just less virtuous things, let's put it that way, Champagne wishes and caviar dreams, lifestyles of the rich and stupid, So we've done that with it, promoted limousines and all that. Then people started to go another direction back in 1990, the 20-year anniversary of Earth Day. People started not just going to do the PSA about ride sharing and driving more clean vehicles. People started in the Hollywood community actually doing it themselves too. It's one thing to tell other people to do it. It's another thing if you actually do it yourself. It becomes more powerful in that way. You can do that. You're entitled to your opinion about things that you have not done, but it becomes a more powerful bullet, a more powerful weapon if you've actually done them yourself.
There's a famous story of you showing up, I forget the award show, on your bike. It seemed like you were just kind of authentically living your life, but you want to tell us a little bit about that story and how that caught on. Was that something you planned, or was that just how you got around and you just happened to make
eventually
news
went up
about
going to the Oscars a few times on my bicycle. Again, not as a publicity stunt, really. The first time I went to the Vanity Fair party is when I got seen doing that. I was just literally locking up my bike, not in front of the paparazzi, off to the side, locking up my bike. I had a little pannier. I was going to change out of my bicycle clothes in the restroom and put on a nice tuxedo. And some paparazzi saw me, and they came over with their camera, and others followed. Ed, hold the helmet up, put the helmet down, look over here, hold the bike up, put the bike to the side. Suddenly I have all this press about it that I didn't really intend, but I learned quickly it became more powerful in that way, because I wouldn't say, listen, you people, you're doing everything wrong. You've got to do things the way I do it. Either, even if you're doing it, that's not the way to approach people. You get a lot more people involved if you do it with purpose. And it's good to talk about it. I'm not saying you have to be quiet about it at all, but do that in a way that doesn't sound preachy and isn't preachy, and do it in as organic a matter as you can. Then my wonderful daughter Hayden decided she'd do a TikTok a couple of years ago about us, she and I going to the Oscars together on public transportation. And it went viral, and she worked with the MTA board for quite a while after that, and she did great things there. So my children really get it too. But I think it's the Stockholm Syndrome for these poor kids. They identify with their captor, I'm afraid.
Well, I love that you're just authentically living that your life and accidentally found a way to use paparazzi for good in spreading that message, and found something that stuck. We've talked about this a few times today about how the message doesn't need to be doomsday. Michael talked about that earlier. Like, we don't have to be doomsday about everything. These positive stories are the ones that catch on. And now you're actually seeing it from your daughter's TikTok, just like Michael saw from the positive stories of how sustainability can lead to good.
Yes, and remember to also include the good news. We can talk about doom and gloom a certain amount, but you don't want to just only do that. You want to talk about the good news about air in Los Angeles. You want to talk about the ozone depletion from CFCs. People said, you can't do that. You can't ban CFCs. You'll never be able to buy a refrigerator again. You won't be able to afford an air conditioner. I'm told they sell both of those items still to this day.
Still around.
So back in 1989, I think it was, 87, it started with the Montreal Protocol. They started phasing out CFCs. They found another chemical, much less damaging to the ozone, and they banned it, and life went on. It wasn't the end of refrigerators, and those were doomsayers too, saying that you wouldn't be able to afford a refrigerator. And so we've had other great accomplishments. The Cuyahoga River does not catch fire anymore, I'm very happy to say.
Over the years, have you seen an actual meaningful shift in how Hollywood approaches sustainability, both like on screen in storytelling, but also even behind the scenes with how they think about being more sustainable in their production shoots and beyond?
That's the best question of the day as far as I'm concerned. Remember, it kind of culminated one particular event, went to an evening event for the rainforest in 1989. The lovely event, Sting was there and other wonderful people were there, cared about the environment, cared about the rainforest, all good people, very well-intentioned and done great things besides their intentions. But on this particular soundstage at 20th Century Fox, where they had the rainforest benefit, there was a huge stock of something, of wood, tropical wood called Luan. It's what they use to build sets in Hollywood. Build it, put it up, this Luan, it's a form of plywood, put it up, paint it, and throw it in the dumpster when you're done. Said, this is a wonderful benefit, and the food is delicious, and the speakers were great. Said, but how about this, gang? How about if we stop using any of that over there, that stack in the corner that I'm pointing at over there? See that? Everybody look to the left there. Stop using that stuff as the Hollywood purchasers of wood, and we're going to have a tremendous impact on the environment for the positive. Keep having the benefits. I'll show up on my bike, and everybody will be happy. Lovely meal, but let's do that too. And they did it, and it made a change.
Love that. Are you involved in some environmental councils within Hollywood that are trying to improve the sustainability of production?
Absolutely. There's a group called Environmental Media Association, EMA. They have events every year, this kind of environmental event every year. They bring experts from around the globe, people knowledgeable in wetland protection, and people knowledgeable about groundwater contamination, people knowledgeable on climate change, and have them talk to the writers and producers of different shows and movies. So if they want to include that stuff as a story, as part of the story in their episode or their feature film, they can do something with it. And here's what they did also, I said, because they were doing that for a while, getting the writers and the producers, the showrunners of these different TV shows to listen to an expert on some environmental matter. They've been doing that for years. I said, if we do it ourselves here as an Emma organization, and most importantly, and we were doing that already to a great extent, I said, let's do it even better than we did the year before and get better every year. But let's have an incentive program. Let's have a green award every year for the TV show, the best half-hour show, the best hour show, who does the most to protect the environment with their own activities. Pretty soon the studios started using, at first, recycled paper, then no paper at all. They started sending them as PDFs. They started using, clean vehicle transport to get around, using energy-efficient lights in the production offices, and then finally on the stage. Nearly all the lights I work with now on Better Call Saul or any modern show are all LEDs. It wasn't like that just 1990 at all. And everything else is a million things. Recycling on the set, recycling in the production offices. Everything that we did, big and small, made a difference in our behavior and the behavior of the TV show. So a TV show, a feature film, a musical album, anything in the world of entertainment that we were trying to influence at the Environmental Media Association, they were doing better and greener things, and it made a change and got the word out that it works to the American public and the world population.
That's great. Hopefully we can get some of those green awards into the Oscars or the Emmys or something.
Hear, hear.
Before, do you think that'll ever happen? Is there ever a world of that?
I don't think it's going to happen this year, but hopefully one day.
Where do you think, I guess in terms of both you've heard a little bit about what's going on in the advertising world here, entertainment industry and advertising certainly work together a lot. You've talked a little bit about what we're doing to improve the sustainability on production and within content, et cetera. Where do you think are the biggest room for improvement within the entertainment and or advertising industry in terms of what you'd like to be seen prioritized or done better?
There's always things, there's always ways to improve. There's a lot of cutting edge stuff that's happening. I found stuff myself. This is a LEED gold structure. It was very hard to achieve here at the Javits Center, but they did it. They're to be applauded. I went for platinum in my home in Studio City in the LA area, and that was very hard, very hard. You had to do everything. So how do you do that? You know, I already got 9 kilowatts of solar. I already got highly efficient HVAC units. I already got, non-wood source construction, vegetable garden, blah, blah, blah. What new could I do? And so I went out and aggressively sought new things that I had never heard of to be to do some beta testing, if you will, to be an early adopter and see if they worked, and they both worked. And I don't think there's many people in this room that have heard of these two things I'll now tell you that were cutting edge, just that extra thing that was hard to find but really made a difference too. One is something called Act on Demand. There's a system, well, let me start with the problem first. The problem is when you turn on your hot water faucet, very often the shower, the bathtub, the kitchen sink, you have to wait a while to get that water to come to the spigot. And that water is wasted. People put a bucket in the shower, what have you, and then try to gather that water and use it in the garden. That's all fine, but it gets to be a pain in the ass some mornings, and people don't do it. They stop doing it. So what do? People use something called a circulating pump to circulate the water throughout the system so that the water is very quickly there at the tap. But the problem with that is you create another problem where you have a electric usage from that pump running all the time. It's low wattage, but still it's running all the time. And you also, by running that water through the piping system under your house, it's acting like a radiator. You're cooling that water in that fashion too. So it's constantly running to keep the water hot where you want it at the spigot. Act on Demand is the following. There's a sensor in every room where you might use hot water, which is the kitchen and the bathrooms. The sensor sees somebody come in the room, it turns on the pump then and then only. It's not on at night, it's not on when you're not in the house. Doesn't even seem to come on with the pets. They have it adjusted sensitivity where it needs a full human being to come into the room. And it comes on and it saves the energy in a tremendous way. I never heard of that, and it works just great.
Yeah, I guess along those lines, like these types of features are catching on in certain circles, but they haven't met like mass appeal yet.
Say that again, Frank.
They haven't reached mass appeal. These types of
not at all.
Sustainable.
I don't know one other person that's done it besides me. Another problem. This is a kind of a high-end elite problem, but my wife wanted the pool warmer. I wasn't about to use natural gas or electricity to heat up a pool. It seemed kind of frivolous even having a pool. I fought against it, but you have to know where to draw the line sometimes. I'm not going to fight my wife on that. She wanted a pool. There was a pool there when we bought the house, so she was not digging a new pool, but she wanted it warmer, so we could change the shape of it. We made it into a rectangle instead of a weird kind of weird shape, so we could cover it. That still wasn't warm enough, so I sought new technology, and that's now the story begins. There's something called hot sun, or H2O sun. They put rubber tubing on the back, the flip side of photovoltaic panels, of which we have 9 kilowatts in the roof of my house. So you're putting black tubing in the back of a solar panel, and many of you in this room have probably been around solar panels in the sun. You probably touch them. Damn, that's hot. That solar panel gets very, very hot. When it gets hot, it loses 15% of its efficiency, by the way. What if you could cool that panel to make it more efficient and use that heat for something? That heat went down the pool. My wife Rochelle's pool is 91 degrees. Mission accomplished. From wasted energy, wasted heat that we captured.
It's a great solution.
Yeah.
How do we get everyone to do that now?
Yeah.
Well, actually, along those,
People in this room have pools, and I'm sorry we have one, but we do. And
couple rooftops out there, you can probably see some pools.
yeah, much better use of the space out there, I'd say.
Yes. Do you have any examples where you've seen moments of storytelling through Hollywood having an impact on that either people have told you after the fact or that you've seen catch on that are the direct result of things that have been told in movies or in content or anything that you've been involved in or that you've seen?
There's many examples of it. The first few I'll mention have nothing to do with the environment, but when Fonzie, the character of Fonzarella from Happy Days, that's Henry Winkler, when he went and got a library card, millions of young people around America went and got a library card because they thought it was cool or something. They thought it was worth doing because the Fonz was doing it. They had an episode on the Norman Lear show, Maude, about breast cancer, and many, many women after that went and got tested for breast cancer, did mammography. And so, and in the environmental arena, we put many messages about green matters into different movies that have different levels of success for doing it. I'm told that when they had a thing about dolphins, safe tuna, dolphins being bycatch when, gathering tuna, that Lethal Weapon, I think, was a movie. They talked about that movie briefly. Danny Glover or somebody said something about it, and it was in the movie, and people became more aware about dolphin-safe tuna back in that day in the early 90s. So it's happened a few times, and I think it's worth happening, worth getting the word out.
So we got to find our Fonzie or dolphin save tuna moment for environmentalism. Maybe do we need Taylor Swift or something to?
Yeah, we need to do something and quick.
Yes, we got to figure out what that watershed moment is going to be for really people caring more about climate change. Let's focus attention on the room here. So there's lots of different types of people in the room: advertisers, brands, publishers, tech companies. And we were talking earlier about our power to influence beyond just our advertising industry into culture and brands. What advice would you give to the people in the room here about using their reach to drive real change towards sustainability in our industry and beyond?
I'll just repeat what I said earlier because it's my only good response to it. I'm sorry. I'll repeat what I said earlier because it's my only good response to it. Be responsible with it. Don't talk frivolously about something about the environment or anything for that matter. Make sure you get your information from a reliable source, and that's something that's doable. You can find a reliable source if you put your mind to it. Again, I'm not assigning any party to that or anything. We just seek, and usually in scientific matters, it's what they call peer-reviewed studies. People wouldn't just somebody who's got a bachelor's degree in whatever, in kinesiology. It's somebody that has a PhD in climate science or whatever you're looking at, any environmental matter that you're talking about. Get a good, reliable material, then do something responsible with that knowledge. And there's, the biggest vote we make, of course, is on election day. There's another vote that we make with our purchasing power. In our showroom floors, in our appliance stores, in our grocery stores, you get to vote with your purchasing power. That's a big, important vote. So if you can help people understand a problem more effectively and get them to vote with their purchasing power, you can accomplish great things. Because people think how wonderful Ed rides the bike and the bus and that he clean up the air and doing that. Not at all. That's only one of the three pillars you need to think of it like 3 legs in a tripod. If you don't have all 3 legs, a tripod doesn't work. But one is personal action. The second is corporate responsibility of equal importance to my personal action. And the third, very important, is good legislation. We couldn't have cleaned up the air in LA without the Clean Water Act signed by Richard Nixon. Couldn't have done what you did for the environment in New York and throughout the country without Jake Javits. Let's not forget that.
Why don't we end on maybe just a quick thought in the future. There's a lot of reason to be pessimistic about the way our climate is moving.
You think?
Yeah. Is there anything that you're optimistic about for the future or anything coming down the line that you think is showing signs of positive momentum?
Let the record show that the defendant was silent at this point of the testimony. No, I won't do that. I won't do that. I'll never do that. I had my little joke, and I don't really mean it because we can always do something. We can affect a change. We can make people aware that it's not a conspiracy that we're talking about climate change, because it really is a problem. And here's how you can research the facts as I understand them and know that it is a real problem with people, Republicans and Democrats, people of every stripe, people from every walk of life, know that it's so, and we have to do something about it, because if you miss this one, you've really done yourself and the world a disservice. We can't sit this one out, gang. Climate change is a big one. We've got to do it. And guess what? When I go to talk to people in other parts of the country, other parts of the world about it, and they seem closed to the discussion of climate change, I know the front door is locked to me. I go around the side door. I say to them in many like red states when I give talks and what have you, I say, how would you like to do the following? Let's clean up the air in Houston and Bakersfield. Let's lessen our dependence on foreign oil. Let's put money in our pockets. Let's do those three things together. It's also going to fix climate change, but don't tell anybody. And I've had great success with that. So find some way to do it that it can involve your neighbor and work together. It's the only way we got anything, Voting Rights Act, anything important. That's the only way we got it done.
That's great. We've heard that a few times, shifting the narrative, talking about the clean benefits and not just focus on climate. That's
exactly.
Well, I really want to thank Ed for sitting down with us today and sharing his experience in Hollywood. So thank you so much for being here, and a big round of applause for Ed Begley here.
Let's see if I can get up. I actually got up too. Thank you so much. Bless you.